What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. You guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, we're going to talk about some of the biggest wild card position groups of the Indianapolis Colts. Is there someone that a lot of people, are looking at, or maybe a position group that we're not talking about that much that could really provide a big impact this year? We're going to talk about that, but real quick, just want to say this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit prizepicks.com or use their app today and use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. But guys, we had a couple of different position groups here that, could be real big wild cards for whether or not we see the success or failure of the Indianapolis Colts this year. And really for wild card position groups, are mainly talking about positions that maybe some people aren't quite talking about as much as maybe they should be. Because we could talk about the wide receiver room or the quarterback room all day long, when it comes to those things. But we talk about it a lot already as is. And we've already mentioned how important those guys can be for the success of this team. But we want to talk about a couple other guys here. And Cody, why don't you go ahead and give us the first position group that could be a huge wild card for this team this year?
Yeah, just before we do that, just so people know, we're going to do one on offense and one on defense. So the biggest wild card groups on both sides of the ball. But when it comes to the offense, I think the biggest wild card, Derek, for me, is that tight end room. I mean, it's just quite interesting with this group because I don't feel like you have a great gauge on it, right? I mean, Jelani Woods, we already know. We've talked him up. We know what he is capable of. I mean, the dude is insanely athletic. He was productive his rookie season when he was targeted. But again, the dude hasn't played like organized, game football in over a year. Like he missed the entirety of the 2023 season with those Achilles, both Achilles injuries, which is definitely was a major bummer for him. So looks like he's getting back and he's starting to get into the swing of things, which is definitely great. But we just don't know with Jelani Woods at this point. Like, can he be the same player he was in 2022 and even better? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know 100% with that. Those kind of injuries, like you just never know. Now, fortunately, it wasn't like a major thing that required surgery or anything crazy like that. But still, like we don't know 100% what Jelani Woods we're going to get in 2024. And so that is definitely a big wild card. And then you just have a lot of young, unproven guys at that tight end position. I mean, we already know with Kylan Granson, Derek, like he's a solid player, but can you get more out of him potentially? He's probably the guy that we personally feel like we know probably the most when it comes to these younger tight ends. Like we've seen him a little bit more. We know what he can do. I mean, he's a solid tight end. But then you got some other guys like, Will Mallory last year, who was the fastest tight end coming out of the draft that year, who I thought Derek looked good when he actually was on the field and he got targets, but he didn't get that many targets. That was the unfortunate part. You still have Andrew Ogletree on the roster. And then you have Mo Alley Cox, who is that, veteran guy, but again, has never really sniffed anywhere near what his potential could be. And so when you look at this group overall as a whole, Derek, a lot of young guys, but a lot of unprovenness. So I guess when I look at this, I'm like, it's such a wild card because this group could turn into a really good young group. Like there's a lot of potential, but it also could turn into, we have to look at the tight end position next year as a potential need for this team because nobody really stepped it up, right? So that's kind of why I would say it's a wild card for me because there's a lot of young talent in here, but young proven talent, not quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of speculation when it comes to this unit. We're not entirely sure what to expect of it moving forward because there are a lot of question marks right now. And like you said, last season wasn't a huge help to the tight end room because again, how the Colts probably wanted to attack it was clearly different under Anthony Richardson versus with Gardner Minshew. You could see the difference in how the tight ends were utilized. I mean, I saw in just the first couple games, you remember that throw from Anthony Richardson to Mo Ali Cox that resulted in a touchdown against the Los Angeles Rams. And even later in that game, I don't remember if it was a 2-point conversion. I think it was a 2-point conversion, or it might have been a touchdown to Drew Ogletree later in that game, also for Anthony Richardson to him. So it felt like the usage of the tight ends was done differently with Anthony Richardson versus that. And like you said, last season, a bunch of guys were just kind of getting a feel for it. But it is going to come down to what happens with Jelani Woods. Is Jelani Woods going to be 100% this year going into it? And if he is, no doubt that that's going to your tight end production, and it's going to provide a lot more opportunities for everyone else. And of course, like you said, Will Mallory, I was definitely shocked that we did not see more Will Mallory last year. Again, felt like every time the kid touched the ball, he was getting a first down almost every time. So it was very unfortunate we didn't get to see more snaps from Will Mallory. Granson had a issue where, we never really got to see him blow things up. We kind of saw it in the Tennessee game, the second Tennessee matchup when we played them in Tennessee, but we didn't really see much more after that from Kylan Granson. And Molly Cox was, his usage is never, I think, actually going to change. I think that we all know what kind of player he actually is. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this unit coincides with each other. But I think that this unit can definitely provide a great spark if Jelani Woods and Will Mallory are two of the front runners, because their presence in the passing game can be such a big thing for Anthony Richardson this year, as long as they remain healthy and stay on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think those two guys, like, you would feel really excited because I think those are the two guys that have the most potential at this point, Derek, and the two guys that you feel probably the most high about. Like, they've shown the most flashes so far. So definitely, for sure, would love to see them, really take control of those top two tight end positions. I think if they do that, that would definitely be a major plus for your offense. And I'm just so intrigued, Derek. I mean, how can you not be with just Jelani Woods and Shane Steichen's system? Like, I just am so interested to see how they use this guy if he is anywhere near the type of athlete he was coming out of college. I mean, dude, no doubt, I think he's going to do some great things. I do. So,
as we said, guys, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling against thousands of other players across platforms, you're basically picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're choosing more or less on those stat projections to be able to watch those winnings roll in. It's very easy. Do you guys want to play along at some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and UFC fighter Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, if you guys sign up today, you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries of some of the biggest names on the platform and be a part of that as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 just like that with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Like a lot of other things, guys, they also offer injury insurance, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if someone exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. So it's great bounce back for that one. What I love about the app as well, guys, is it's not just sports like NBA, NHL, football, and tennis, and baseball, and all these other things, but there's also a lot of others that go into it as well. If you like to place entries on video game situations like Call of Duty, CS2, Apex, if that's something that appeals to you, there's a wide variety of sports and video games and everything else that you can place entries on. And I love how expansive it is. Even just looking at the NBA, there's entries you can make with turnovers, with points. You can do combo deals, dunks, field goals attempted, all of these different things. So there's just so many different ways to make money off of these entries. Be sure to download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
We'll have to see on that, though. Tight end position, really very much a wild card position. But Derek, switching it over to the defensive side of things, when you talk about a wild card position, I think you have to go to the safety position, right? And this is a position we've talked about before, Derek, because it's so interesting. And I think similar to tight end, you have some young guys that you think have that potential, especially at free safety to potentially be the player of the future of that position. But you also could have a scenario next year, Derek, where you're looking at the safety position and saying, that is our number one focus on the defensive side of the ball. Like, it could go to that drastic, I think, of, need or not. Like, it could go to that point because you obviously have Julian Blackmon back there, who we talk about, played really good football last year at the strong safety position. You really are happy with him. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be your future there because he's only 25 years old and he's a good player when he's on the field. But that free safety position is where things get interesting because right now you have two young guys who haven't really showed you that they can be the safety of the future. You obviously have Rodney Thomas, who started some games for you last year and then in 2022 as well. He had a lot more up moments in 2022, 2023, really took a step back. And then you have Nick Cross, who obviously you traded up for in that 2022 draft. Well, I would say definitely Cross out of the two has the highest potential. He also is a guy, Derek, that showed some inconsistencies as well. So still just a lot of youth back there, especially at that free safety position. But I mean, Derek, if Nick Cross lives up to, where he was drafted and what the Colts believe he can be here in year number 3. And if Julian Blackmon can stay healthy, this could be a strength of a position. But on the flip side, if it doesn't, you might be looking for two new safeties come 2025.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about the cornerback room, and, is the cornerback room what is needed the most of help-wise? But I don't think that's the biggest issue here. I think it has to be the safety room. And I really like Julian Blackmon. I think Julian Blackmon is definitely the guy that I would like to have here long term. But you're right. This next season, Julian Blackmon is going to be a free agent once again. And the Indianapolis Colts, they've already, when you give them the 1-year contract, they're not going to sign him to an extension in the middle of the season. They're going to wait until the end of next year. And if Julian Blackmon balls out and plays 16 games next year and doesn't have an issue and ends up balling out and says, hey, I feel disrespected by the fact that you won't give me a long-term deal at the money that I feel I deserve because I'm producing at a level that is right up there with some of the best safeties in the league. I feel like I should be getting more than this. And you're right. That could lead to a spot where you're right. The Indianapolis Colts, they may be in trouble safety-wise in 2025. That might be what they have to provide their overwhelming focus on come 2025 if they don't shore it up now, because Nick Cross, Daniel Scott, Rodney Thomas, they're all coming for that second safety spot. There's a lot of different opportunities for the Indianapolis Colts at that second safety spot, and sometimes even in that third safety spot when, they're in certain coverages and whatnot. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but it just goes to show you just how the Colts don't even really know who's the best one out there right now. And that is definitely concerning if you're unable to identify who's the best free safety amongst your group right now. So it will definitely be interesting this year to see how the safety group does. I'm not as concerned about the cornerback room as some people are. Much more concerned about what's that free safety position going to look like this year, and is it going to come back to hurt us by not doing anything?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. That's why they're called wild cards. We don't know 100% what's going to happen with both these positions, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless. But guys, let us know your thoughts here on the two wild card positions we've identified on this team, that being the tight end position and the safety position. Which position do you think maybe will turn out for the better? Which position maybe do you think the Colts might need to be looking for some new players come next season, or maybe even sign, an outside free agent or two? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments down below. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.